asked God, is there a word? Is there a word in your word that would help us understand this, that would help us get a handle on this? And the first thing that came to my mind, which always comes to my mind, was the whole David and Goliath. The David and Goliath motif. How an underdog can beat the giant. I thought about David and Goliath, how a little boy can go up against a grown warrior who's never lost a battle and come out victorious. I thought about David, who once said, look, I've killed a bear and a lion, and I'm not afraid of this giant. And as I thought about it, it reminded me of the Ukrainians. They said, there's bear here called Russia. We ain't afraid. And I thought that the same God who helped David kill Goliath is the same God that can get Putin to turn around and go home. David said, I took a slingshot. I didn't have a missile. I didn't have any of that. I took a slingshot and a few rocks, and I went straight at the giant. And David took his slingshot, and understand, it's not about how good he was with the slingshot. It's that God guided the rock. And the rock hit Goliath right here in his temple. And it not only stunned him, it just paralyzed him. It just paralyzed. It came so quick and so hard, when it hit him, he couldn't move. And the next thing Goliath does, and some of you, anybody here ever boxed? You? Then I know you know what I'm talking about, getting knocked out. You know what I'm talking about. When you get hit, all of a sudden your brain just stops. And Goliath falls 9 feet of him, bam, and hits the ground. And David gets the victory. So I thought about what Ukraine is doing against Russia as the David and Goliath. I said, yeah, but that's really not what I'm looking for. It's really not what I'm looking for. That's one man against another man. So what I was really looking for was this, Exodus chapter 17. This is the text. So stand with me as this comes up. This is our text for today. Exodus 17, starting at verse 8. Exodus 17, starting at verse 8, going down to verse 13. Exodus 17 says, the Amalekites came. The Amalekites came. You got it? The Amalekites came. The Russians came. The Amalekites came and attacked. The Russians came and attacked. The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands. So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses did what? Held up his hands. I told you we're lifting hands for Ukraine. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side, one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. God bless that word. You may be seated. That was the one I was looking for. I love David and Goliath. I love it. I will always love it. But for this battle, I was looking for this one. Because what this battle and what you just read with me is that there is a battle going on down in the valley. Joshua and the men are fighting down in the valley. The reason I know it's a valley is because Moses is where? Up on a hill. They're fighting in the valley. It's just like the Ukrainians and the Russians. They're fighting in the valley. Moses is on the hill. Moses is lifting his hands to God. Moses is the prayer warrior for the battle. And if you caught it, here's the most powerful, important thing about it, is that the victory of the battle is not because what's happening in the valley. It's because of what's happening on the mountain. If there's no prayer on the mountain, there's no victory in the valley. Because it said every time his hands went down, the Amalekites started to win the battle. But as long as he was lifting up, as long as he was petitioning God, as long as he was praising God, there was victory down in the valley. So my word to people in the Ukraine, because they are fighting, they are in the valley. But I talked to Zelensky and others, is that we definitely need some people up on the hill praying. Now, none of us in here are going to Ukraine to help fight, but all of us in here can raise our hands and pray. And I just believe that the power of prayer, you know, I'm so crazy with prayer. I believe if we lift our hands to God in prayer, that somehow God will touch the heart of Putin. So let me say this. I don't know if God has hardened his heart. I don't know if he's hardened his own heart. Doesn't matter. I know if we lift Ukraine up in prayer, if we go to God in prayer, I'm believing I'm going to turn on the news one day. They're going to say, we don't understand it. We don't know what happened, but Putin turned around and took everybody back home. It's what happens. The battle being waged in the valley. The battle's waged in the valley, but the victory comes from the mountain. You hear me? The battle is waged in the valley. The victory comes from the mountain. That's why when the Bible says this, that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty to the pulling down of strongholds. We don't only fight with carnal weapons. We don't only fight in the valley with tanks and guns and rockets and all that. We also go up to the mountain. We also spend time on the mountain. And if you cannot get to the mountain, if you're in the valley fighting, it's good to know somebody's on the mountain praying. If you came here today and you found yourself in the valley fighting, you've been dealing with something, you've been wrestling with something, you're ready to give up on the marriage, give up on everything. If you're in the valley fighting, one of the beauties of joining a church is if you can't get to the mountain, their folk can go to the mountain for you.